Okay, hi, good afternoon. So I'm the founder of Frolic Studio, and we are a product design and development studio in Amsterdam. We're part industrial design, part interaction design, and part engineering. And for our clients, we do a range of projects. Often they're R&D, innovation type projects, but more often than not, lately they've been in production, so we go all the way towards production. And really, at the moment, we do mostly advertising projects. So these are products developed in the advertising context. And so these tend to carry a branded message, be concept-driven, so the talkability of the concept is of high priority. It comes from marketing money, so that means the budget available for it is split throughout the whole campaign, which is important. This means the video production, as well as the advertising itself. And often these are smaller quantities, which means that the cost per unit is a little bit higher. And the timelines are super short, and that's a big one. Often you have half the time that it would take to make a normal product. So decisions happen super quickly. But in the end, these are products for people, such as my adorable niece, Nina. Yeah. So in this talk, I'll share a little bit about the process of, or what it takes to design and manufacture a physical product. Because often you have a lot of great ideas, but it needs to actually happen. And I want to show you a little bit behind the scene what that takes. And so I'll do this through two projects we did, products we did for KLM. And they have a great appetite for this kind of stuff. They're really a modern and innovative brand, and they want to show it through these kind of campaigns. So for us, it's perfect. So for them, we did these two products. We did the Care Tag and the Nachtjeslampje, which Paul had mentioned. In English, that means Night Light. And we did this with an ad agency called DDB and Tribal. They're based in Amsterdam. Well, they're global, but we did it with the Amsterdam office. And both these products have been actually really successful, both as marketing efforts and also as products in themselves. So for the Care Tag, I will talk mostly about it in the context of design, so the design process. And for the night lights, I'll be talking about it in the context of production. And for both of these, we actually manufactured several thousands of these and did the whole design process. Okay, so first, the KLM Care Tag. This is a standalone GPS tracker that KLM gives to tourists that flew with them. And as they walk around the city, they get contextual audio messages to them. And it's a way for KLM to really extend their care. So they're really good when you buy a ticket. They're really good on the flight itself. Like their whole service layer is like amazing. But of course they land, and then what? So this is where this product comes in. So actually this is super fresh. The campaign is happening as we speak. And so when people order online or book for their flight, they can order also the Care Tag. It's completely free, so it's a giveaway. And I have a video that explains it much better than I do.
At KLM, we always go the extra mile to give you the best personal service during your flight. But wouldn't it be great if we could extend our care during your stay?
Mind your step. This is a very busy area with a lot of cyclists.
Beautiful Amsterdam, the hometown of KLM. But lately our city got a lot busier, and visitors could use a little more assistance.
The average taxi fare from Schiphol Airport to the city centre is around 45 euros.
Hey, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's why we developed a way to always have our crew with you to help you around.
Mind the tram rails while biking.
Introducing the KLM Care Tag, an audio luggage tag equipped with GPS that gives you all the tips and tricks to master Amsterdam based on your location.
Mind your step at this intersection.
Recorded by our own caring crew. Just attach it to your bag and you're good to go.
Beautiful square, right? But also keep an eye on your personal belongings. See these canals? Just 2 minutes from here you can rent a boat. Beware of the following low bridge. Keep your head down. Make sure you lock your bike to the bike stand 5 meters from you.
Flying with us to Amsterdam this September? Let us make sure that you have a pleasant flight and a pleasant stay. Order your care tag at klm.com/caretag.
Okay, so as with every product, it's not finished when you start it. So you have to kind of a design process to get there. So we had actually a really good brief from the creative team already, but so many things were open, so we had to go through our process. And so we started off exploring a lot of various ideas and presented these. And then we got feedback on them, and we did a bunch of iterations, and eventually arrived at something that's relatively final conceptually, obviously without the details worked out, but the main elements are there. And we can use this for an approval point with the client. So we get approvals at this point, and yeah, it's throughout this process we also need to keep a close eye on feasibility, because we're going to really manufacture it. We need to make sure it's realistic. And this influences a lot of stuff, such as the size of it, or the shape, and so on. Okay, so once the idea is done, you need to really work out the details. You need to start with industrial design. This is figuring out the curves, figuring out like the edges, the color, just all the details around the product. And this also the finish, of course, and the type of plastic. Also the components. So there's a button, like what size is the button, where is it, where's the USB port? This needs to go hand in hand with the engineering. But at the end of this, we have a super high fidelity design at that point. And then we 3D print that. So we do it on a medium fidelity machine, and the goal of that is really to get a sense of what it's like in practice or in context. So you can put it on the bag, you can feel it, you can see ergonomically how it feels. And also, really important, you can already use these files to send to the factories and get an idea of the cost and how long it would take to actually produce such a design. But of course, you need to work, like all this is influenced by the functionality. So the care tag actually needed to be universally understood, because it's not just for a particular market, it's actually being sent to various regions, various people around the world with different cultural backgrounds. So we needed to figure out like a really universal, easy kind of user experience with that. So we ended up going for a single button as the main point of interaction. And this is like an on-off, but you can also use it to based on the actual context or what's happening at the moment, trigger various other functionalities. Of course, a bit of feedback with the LED. Lights, there's a speaker hole, so you can show it to the user, because the first time they get it, they don't necessarily know exactly what it does, so they know that it will play audio. It's got a strap, so you can connect it, and it's got a USB port that's universal for charging. But all this is from the perspective of the user. Behind the scenes, there's a ton of stuff that needs to happen, so I'm not going to bore you with that, but you have to, of course, program the whole firmware around it. But the most basic functionality of this is, of course, to play a audio file based on your location. So the audio message is mapped to a specific location, and you have a radius where it's active. So if that's the radius, 10 meters, let's say, as I walk in, it will trigger the audio message. If I'm in it, I can also press the button, trigger it again in case somebody's missed it. Yeah, so that's the most basic functionality. But there's a lot more. Okay, so usually when you make a product in the advertising context, there's kind of this weird thing that needs to happen, and that is you need to create all the content for it before the product actually is finished or manufactured. So they need to make a film for it. So like we need to have basically a really high fidelity prototype of it that looks just like it would in the movie. And it also, that promise we make at that point, we need to carry it through to production. So it's really important, even early on, that you have everything worked out. Even if there are still some question marks, you need a lot honed in. And this high fidelity prototype is used for the film, but it's also used as a sample for moving forward, or a reference point. Okay, so to get there, there's a lot of super meticulous handwork that goes in, and so this is our 3D printer we have in the studio. It's a high-fidelity, really high-resolution 3D printer. And I don't know if you can see this lighting, but you'll see the laser, so it's in this basin of resin, and it's like hardening the resin layer by layer, and then it comes out very not clean, actually. But so you do all the finish by hand, and so you sand it, and you spray paint, and you do all that stuff. And then you have the sample for the film. This is the pre-production sample that you also use before moving to production and get a signature that this is how it's going to be later on. And then you have all the electronics that needs to happen. This actually happens in parallel to the industrial design or to the casing. Yeah, so for this, you have up there like a circuit board. So the engineer designs that, and then you get it printed. So it's this flat circuit board. And then what you do very painfully is you put all these tiny components, it's exactly 2 LEDs on here. You take them and you place them, all hundreds of them, onto just like a puzzle, and you place them on to the board, and then you put it in the oven, you cook it a bit, and then they bind it. And then it looks eventually like the full thing. This is, of course, during the design process. Later, it's all automatic. Yeah. So once you have all the electronics on it, you will upload the code so that you can actually test it. And this whole process will go a bunch of times. So you'll you'll do maybe something won't be working so well, or you need a different component, and then you'll adapt, redesign, and go on and on. Then you need the packaging. That all needs to be designed as well. In this case, we have the Care Tag, obviously. We have the USB strap. We have a USB cable. We have the strap to connect it. We have a manual in it. And it all needs to be nice and snug and designed in such a way that it protects it. Then there's all the regulations for a product that's being distributed to a country, because you send it to all the different countries. And there was a lot of them in this case. But this affects actually so much throughout the process, because you need to, your whole engineering needs to depend on the regulations around that, the design process, what goes where. Like, it's actually like an enormous task just in itself. And then finally comes the mass production for this. And we've been doing all this in the Netherlands for this one. But it's so fresh that I'm actually going to use the KLM Nachtjeslampje. Am I saying it properly? Nachtjeslampje. Yeah, great. But Dutch is terrible. I'm not Dutch. So I'll be using this other product we made for KLM to talk about the production. But first, video.
KLM 123 hier. We hebben de moeder van Daan aan boord en willen graag de landing inzetten vanaf het nachtkastje.
Oh, geen probleem. De brandweer heeft net een boot van de baan gehaald. Weerman?
Er staat een stevig briesje, maar het is droog met een fijne kamertemperatuur.
Mooi, dan krijg je groen licht van de grondploeg. Slaapkamer Airport is klaar.
Goed werk, mannen.
Dank je.
Komt u maar, KLM 123. Wacht, er branden nog 3 lampjes. Over 3 nachtjes mag je landen.
Oké, ik zie het. Dan wachten we nog eventjes.
Hé jongen, heb ik je wakker gemaakt?
Nog 3 nachtjes, toch?
Ja, nog 3 nachtjes. Dan komt mama weer terug. Ga maar lekker slapen.
Het KLM nachtjeslampje telt de nachtjes tot jij weer thuis komt van zakenreis. Bestel hem nu op klm.nl/nachtjeslampje.
So, just a little bit of background context for this project. KLM wanted to create a campaign targeted at the business travelers, but it was partly a giveaway, but it was also sold in parallel on the online store, which you can also buy if you want now or after the talk. No. But I'm going to skip through the whole design process, because we went through that for the Care Tag, and I'm going to now talk about the production process. So once you have all the engineering files ready and all that's done, you need to find factories you want to work with and suppliers. For this one, we made it in China. This is mostly because we had so little time to do it that they're super good at production. Like, they can produce things really quickly. So it's good in this case. But for this kind of products, there were 4 key parts to it. There's the plastic, there's the electronics, there's the packaging, and there's the power supply. And I'll walk you very quickly through each part. So for the plastic, you need to have molds built. This is enormous steel contraptions where the hot plastic gets shot through and it gets the shape of the product. This is actually one of the more risky and complex parts of the process. It's super time consuming, it's really expensive, and there's a lot of back and forth that goes between the engineers and the factory and our design team. So there'll be lots of issues, and that's totally normal, but it's just to be accounted for. There's a lot of issues that come up throughout the process, like maybe the screw holes won't work, or maybe there's some scratches on the mold, and then that's reflected in the plastic. Maybe the parting lines where the 2 halves meet isn't perfect. So you go back and forth, and then eventually you have a good plastic piece. This was a night light, so the goal is obviously to have light in it. And so the windows are actually semi-transparent plastic. And so to control the opacity, it's kind of awesome. You take transparent plastic, you mix dye in it, you shake it, and out comes this semi-transparent plastic. And then you do this is actually in the process of getting the right balance before the main mix. But what you do is you kind of go and you have the light and you try it out, and then you mix a new batch, and then you try and you see until it feels right. And then there's the detailing. This is what goes from a completely raw plastic thing to the final branded product. And this is the progression you see. So rough, good with the right plastic, and then the sprinkle on top. So there are various elements to the detailing, and for the white, we use the plastic itself. Then for the blue, they have 2 different blues. We did spray painting, and for that, there's a mold that it's kind of like a waffle maker. And living in the Netherlands, oh no, it's the Belgium that are more about waffles. But anyway, you spray paint it around, and then you put it in the oven, and you dry it. And then for the logo, this is an amazing process. It's a way to basically get a really high resolution image with paint. And the KLM logo is really small. Actually, on the engine, it's even smaller. So this works great. And basically, it's a piece of metal that's etched out with the logo, and then it fills it up with paint, and then scrapes it off, except for where the etching is, and then stamps. It's really cool. So as a side note, when you have the product that's kind of the detailing all done, the factory, so you make 2, and then the factory keeps 1, and you keep 1, and then you sign it, and then that's your reference point later on, because of course, this is like during the test phase, but maybe later it will be completely different, and then you need to be able to refer back. So then for the electronics, the factory that does the electronics, they take care of printing the circuit board. They take care of putting the components on it and doing all the stuff with the electronics. But the first step is to take solder. So solder is what goes onto the components, or if you heat it up, what makes the component stick to the circuit board. So what you do is you have this big sheet with lots of holes in it that line up perfectly, like there, and you smudge all the solder paste over it, and then it's perfectly to the millimeter exactly where you need it. And then there's a pick and place machine that is responsible to put all the components on. And for this, actually you're seeing it being calibrated. So you're telling basically the machine where to place each component. And it's super precise. And then you load the components in, each different component. So let's say you have 2 different types of LED, there'll be 2 different rolls. And then one roll's just got like thousands of them. And yeah, then the machine just goes crazy and works its magic and places them really quickly. So then you have the power supply. And that actually, we use a supplier that just does that all day, every day. So we just tell them the specs, we tell them what we want. We know they're very high quality and they're safe and they fit all the regulations. And then they make it, so you can skip through that. That's easy. And of course, you have the packaging. and this is responsible for keeping the product safe, but it's also the first experience with the product. So then you find a supplier and you tell them what you want. Of course, there's cost involved. There's also the type of product that it is, like different things you think about. But we wanted a styrofoam casing to protect the plane nicely and just a simple box around it. So you give them the design. This is called a die cut. And then basically it shows the cut and the fold lines and the print that goes on it. So up to now, different factories do different parts of the process, and this needs to be all combined into like a final product that's ready for distribution. And of course, you need to check that each product is working. So this process is what we call assembly. It's basically putting it all together in the box and ready for shipping. It's good also to keep different factories doing different parts of the process because they each have their expertise, but also you don't have one party having all the design files, which could be, of course, a worry because they could replicate super easily. Finally, after all this, you need to get the products shipped to, in our case, the Netherlands, to a warehouse. Each one of these boxes is called a master carton. And then, for shipping, you can do it by sea. That takes 6 weeks. It's pretty cheap. You can do it by train. That takes about 3 weeks, medium cheap. And there's actually a really good line between China and Europe, so that's very good. And you can do it by air, and by air it takes 1 week, but it's obviously the most expensive, and we had to do it this way for this because there wasn't much time. So just like that, you make a product. Yeah. And thank you.